Good morning. So nice to see all of you here this morning, and I've already heard a few of you as you've walked in, you went, whoa, things look a little different this morning. Well, that's been done by design. I have been very intentional in doing that this morning, and I also want to say a warm welcome to those of you joining us from your homes today. We are able to live stream this morning. And you may notice, and just very faintly, you heard the guitar picking as you were sitting and just chatting with one another. You'll hear it throughout the service in the background. I do want to extend a thank you to Mark Baldwin. He is an artist from the United States. This is his most recent recording. I reached out to Mark this week and kind of explained to him how our service was going to be unfolding here today, and he said, absolutely, you can use my music in this setting. And so, truly, friends, we're here, the Lord's table at the center. But more than that, I want this time for all of us to be a time to just simply catch our breath. Anybody on pins and needles with what's going on around us right now? I mean, there's all kinds of things. And we could sit here today, and as I look around the room and see all the number of faces, any number of ideas, thoughts that could be going through your minds right now with everything that's going on. But perhaps I should simply begin by saying this. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Friends, today may we come to a place within ourselves. May we come to a place of longing and desire for Jesus only. Not what we're experiencing in the world around us, not what we're thinking may or may not happen in downtown Fredericton. Because I'll confess, it felt a little bit eerie last night as my daughter and I drove by downtown as we returned home from UNB to see the flashing lights, to see the barricades in our city. I'll be honest, it felt a little eerie. But friends, I'm often reminded, and I need to come back to the words of Jesus when he simply said, "Come to me." And friends, that's where I want us to go this morning. And how do I know that? How can I say that in fullest assurance and confidence this morning? Because I know that our Father is here. Jesus is here. The Holy Spirit is here. God is calling to you. He's calling to me this morning from the garden. Remember that story so well of Adam and Eve? When, as they were going into hiding and God was walking in the garden and he said, "Where are you?" Friends, that garden, that perfect place of dwelling, God is still there. And he invites us to join him. Your simple response, my simple response today, despite all the turmoil, all the questions that we could, and we won't take time to unpack this morning, because quite honestly, if I was to ask each one of you some of the questions going through your minds, we'd be sitting here all day, wouldn't we? Right? Trying to wrestle with it and where it's going to end up. But friends, here's what I know. God is calling from the garden. And your response and my response is to simply say, "Here I am." Reflect on these words with me from Psalm 85. I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. But let them not return to their foolish ways. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him. So our land will be filled with his glory. So how do we do that? How do we say, when we hear God calling out, when God is extending that invitation to come, to be present with him at his table. How are you and I able to say, God, I am with you? Listen to these words as Lois shares them. Let them sink in. Let it be a time of examination as she shares Psalm 139.
O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I am going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. If I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in the darkness I cannot hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. O God, if only you would destroy the wicked. Get out of my life, you murderers. They blaspheme you. Your enemies misuse your name. O Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life.
Point out anything in me that offends you. Friends, that's why we gather like this, why we circle around his table. It's so that our hearts, our ears, our minds are focused here. And maybe, just maybe briefly for the next 25, 30, 35 minutes, may that be where our hearts and minds come to today, right here, at this place. Nothing, as Lois shared, and I'm paraphrasing here, but there is absolutely nothing that can separate you, that can separate me from the Spirit of God. Let that sink in today. With all that's going on around us, nothing can separate us. You know, as I was thinking back over the last few weeks as we've been walking together this journey through the Gospels, I couldn't help but come back to a prayer that we had walked through together. And even as we continue to walk through the words of Jesus in the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, when Jesus says, "Blessed are those who are poor in spirit," what does that mean? Does that mean that we're physically poor, that we don't have enough? Did anybody not have breakfast this morning? right? We've got food on our tables. We've got a roof on our heads. In terms of a physical definition of being poor, there's not one of us in this room today that are poor. But Jesus says, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. When you take a look at that, what's the invitation? Well, the invitation is simply for you and I, as we're listening to these words of Jesus, to examine our hearts, to know, to live, to breathe in peace. And to do that, it begins with looking inside. Poor in spirit simply means to realize our need for Him. And I appreciate the way Eugene Peterson paraphrases this when he suggests, when you and I are at the end of our rope. Anybody at the end of their rope with all that's going on? Anybody wanting for our Prime Minister to say, enough! Let's be done with all of this, right? Let's move forward, right? But as I stand here before you, I confess how I might picture what moving forward looks like might look different than what Harold is picturing. It might look different than what Teresa is picturing. It might look different than what Doris is picturing. But there's no question to all of us this morning, we do want to move forward. But Jesus is saying to us, friends, remember our spiritual condition. To come to me, he says. He goes on to say that when you and I understand our spiritual condition, the kingdom of heaven is ours. Let that sink in today. That perfect place of rest. Anybody want a perfect place of rest this morning? I mean, there's Dylan, just nice and quiet and still at perfect rest, right? It's a lovely picture, right? A lovely picture. But Jesus is saying, not that physical rest, that rest in here. When all the turmoil is boiling over. When you can't take another step. You feel like the oxygen's being cut off. Remember your need for God, and you will be blessed. You will find inner peace. You know, as a local church, over the last number of weeks, we've been saying publicly, and some of you have seen other faces in our online setting. People have said, I choose faith over fear. What? Why? And I'm not asking for a show of hands. I'm not asking for you to say out loud this morning, but think about this with me for a moment. Why do you say that? Why did I say it? There's no question that fear, in one sense of that word, is all around our nation right now, and perhaps even on many levels. And sometimes it can and it will grip each of us. Maybe it's here that we once again need to return to the words of Jesus.
Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, the words of Jesus. So don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers. But your heavenly Father already knows all your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. why did we say, I choose faith over fear? Because we see, or we saw, our poorness of spirit. I kind of chuckled when I was typing all this out. I don't say everything that's on the paper, so sometimes it's hard to give people my notes. It's a good thing Lois Phillips isn't here, because she couldn't preach for me today and share with Pastor Chris, because I don't have everything written out like I hopefully will say it, or not. But when I was typing out, because we see or saw our poorness of spirit, it didn't want me to say poorness of spirit. And I kind of chuckled because it brought up as a solution or suggestion, poor mess. I thought, that works. We saw our poor mess in our lives and acknowledged our need of faith in Jesus Christ. The kingdom of heaven is ours and sets us on the road of faith that dispels fear and increasingly dominates our thinking. Our road of faith increasingly dominates our thinking. By faith, we have believed Jesus is the good news. We bear the testimony of faith in Jesus more and more. I like that. We bear the testimony of faith in Jesus more and more. Living righteously isn't just something that's, we came to Jesus, we're righteous. No, we live righteously through dependence on Jesus and trust in Jesus. It's our testimony in ever-increasing measure. Our dominant thinking in ever-increasing measure. I liked it when Pastor Chris and I were talking about this message, and we were just going to share back and forth about the picture of walking the road of the gospel as being a road of discovery. And I had a few stories that I wanted to share about that. And it kind of hopefully will give you the picture of increasing measure of faith. When our lives change, when we look to Jesus and say, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. And he points it out and he said, you're right. You know, that's not faith in me. That's not demonstrating the thinking that should dominate in your mind. So I pictured, all these things started coming to mind of things that happen on the road. You travel different roads than I do. And maybe sometimes I travel on the same roads as you. But some pictures came to my mind of when I had been on the road and God had to show me the picture or show me the faith that should have been dominating my mind. One of them came when I was in grade 4, and you might give me a little bit break there because I was only 9. So I didn't know all there was to know about faith and living for Jesus, and sometimes I'd make some slips, you know. And in grade 4, grades 1 through 4, I went to a little elementary school, country school, that I could walk to from my home. And those walks sometimes would be just a few of us, sometimes those walks would be a lot of us. And we all went to a one-room school classroom. Okay, so I'm aging myself, but that's okay. There's perks when you get to be my age, so I'm pretty happy about that. And walking home from school one day, I gave my heart to Jesus when I was 9 years old. So I didn't instantly become righteous. It was a road, a journey in which I began to discover more and more of faith and righteousness. So one day when we were walking home from school, there was this young man, also 9 years old, who seemed to need attention, particularly that day, but often needed attention. And that day, he was really bugging the girls. Now, I didn't get out to get a stick because I would have had to wade a fair amount of snow, and I didn't really want to do that, but I was going to bring in a stick because he was carrying a stick that day, and he was bugging all the girls until he bugged me. And he come up alongside of me and poked a present that I had. I had no idea why I had the present. Not sure. I was coming from school and it was wrapped in green tissue. I do remember that. I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember some things that are pertinent to our story today. He ripped the tissue on my present, and that really got me. And then I heard some of the girls saying, he was bugging me too, he was bugging me, and he was bugging me, and all these people. And I realized there were a lot of people walking on that road, what we called the old road to Woodstock, from Heartland to Woodstock. A lot of things happened in my life on that old road to Woodstock. And he got my attention. And when I turned around, he realized I might do something about it. And he took off to the center of the road. Now, this was a country road, fairly busy. I made my way to the center of the road. And I said, you need to stop. You've been bugging all of us, and you need to know that that's not right. So just in case he didn't understand my words, I had learned how to fight. And so I drew back. Whoop! And in case that wasn't enough, I drew back. Whoop! And blood started running down his face. And there were about 40 kids standing in the Reformed Baptist Church parking lot, just this side of New Brunswick Bible Institute. And I had his attention. You know, that story has come back to me again and again and again, because you know what? He never really hurt me. He never really did anything to me. He just got my goat. And I took matters into my own hands, and I let him have it. I have learned over the years that sometimes we take matters into our own hands, and it's not right on our roads. It's not the faith thing to do. It wasn't the dominant thinking in my mind and heart. You know, 5 years later, I was on that same road in the car when my brother was driving, who was 19, and we were on our way to Woodstock, 95 miles an hour. That's not a good road to drive 95 miles an hour. And he was holding my hand and holding the steering wheel with the other and driving, because we were on the way to the hospital when my father was dying. Now, I've learned something about that. We can be upset, and it was natural to be upset. I was hurting, I was crying. My dad was my best friend. And I did lose it. We didn't make it. And I can remember sitting in that hospital. That's the old Woodstock Road. It has a lot of memories for me. But faith in Jesus got me through. Because before my dad was taken to the hospital, I had held his hand. I can't believe I did this. I had held his hand and prayed, saw his agony, and said, God, he's yours. You know how he will have to live if he gets through this. And you know if it's best if you take him home. So I give him to you. And God took him home. That's what God saw best. I have learned over the years, God is in control. He's in control of me when I let him be and trust in him on that road of discovery, of faith. I went back to serve in Heartland, in ministry at the Heartland Baptist Church for 10 years. In 1 month, I learned something else on that Woodstock, that old Woodstock Road. Within 1 kilometer of my home, coming from Woodstock, I saw the pretty lights behind me. And a gentleman gets out of the car and comes up. And 2 points later, I learned something about my faith. It was on the road of discovery. I didn't make it through the whole month. And on the Woodstock Road, almost to Heartland, they were waiting for me in the People's Church parking lot. And I came up around that corner when you're supposed to be going through a 50-kilometer zone, and I wasn't obviously doing that. So they pulled me over with the pretty lights again, came up to my window, and wrote me out a warning. Well, my faith kicked in, of course, and I was upset. And I scrunched that ticket up right in front of the police officer, and I threw it over on the right seat. Didn't say a word. But did he see my faith? I don't think so. Oh, it was awful. Anyway, I went in to show them the ticket. Maybe I did get charged. I don't remember. But I didn't make it through the whole month in going on the old Woodstock Road, almost to Heartland, at night. Those pretty lights were waiting for me again. 30 days. This is my third time. And of course, somebody from the church had to drive by that night. So my testimony was spread without me even saying anything. And I got charged again. I was down to 3 points. Back then, you had to earn them back. Took me quite a while. But you know, over the years on the road of the discovery of the gospel in my life, I learned something. Faith comes with ever-increasing measure. And I had to be before the Lord and say, God, I am so sorry. He understands. And he wants us to come to him when we don't demonstrate the dominant thinking that should be ours as believers in Jesus Christ. It's a learning process. He doesn't expect us to be perfect, but we are perfect in Jesus Christ. Now, it's a learning process. There are a lot of stories I could tell you, not just about that road, but many other roads. The road of the gospel, the road of faith discovery, is not about scrunching up the ticket, plowing the guy in the nose. It's really about the heart. I saw somebody do this. It's not about that. Not about mask wearing. It's really about the heart. Now, things upset us. It is annoying. My throat's getting better, though. I wear 2 masks usually. I didn't today because I'm trying to speak through the mask and the microphone. So my voice is getting stronger because I have to yell louder and talk to people, and I can't hear, so I have to talk even louder when they don't hear me. So that's getting better. That's something to be thankful for. It's about the heart. We keep coming to Jesus so that our heart is changed. I love the verse in Psalm 84 and verse 5. Often I quote it. From the NIV it says, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you, those who have set their heart on pilgrimage." But I love it in the Message. Blessed are those in whom you live. Those, I have to stop and think about it. Blessed are those in whom you live, whose lives are the roads you travel. Whose lives are the road you travel. Jesus lives in us. Blessed are we because he lives in us. Those in whose lives are the roads he travels. That's pretty awesome. We need to be thankful when we come to Jesus. He changes us, He transforms us, and we are set on pilgrimage towards eternity with Him. We're blessed. What heritage we have to continue to come to Jesus and change and find forgiveness, and change and find forgiveness. Jesus is amazing. All through chapters 8 and 9, if you've been continuing to read in the Gospel of Matthew, it's about lives being changed and transformed, healed. The storm was stilled. They didn't have faith. The disciples, imagine, Jesus was with them. Jesus is with us. Jesus is here. We're blessed when our lives are the roads He travels.
And when we reflect and we think upon the healing that Jesus offers, that Jesus gives, you know, it's interesting, as Lois just referenced, if you've been reading on in Matthew 8, Matthew 9, and even on through, and you read and you hear about some of these miracles that Jesus performed and the healing that He gave, it's very interesting to note that oftentimes it's when someone comes to Jesus and asks, I've got something physically wrong with me, and I'm desperate, because I have been living with this, I have been walking with this, and I can't walk with it anymore. And Jesus looks at these individuals and He says to them, you will be healed. But then Jesus goes a step farther to offer not only healing, but forgiveness. And He says often, your sins are forgiven. He helps people to recognize, to see how they are poor in here. Friends, as I reflect over these last 2 years, if there is anything that I am praying for as we would return to whatever is normal, you know, oftentimes, and I confess, I've said it too, that we would get back to normal. But friends, you know something? The Lord has challenged me to change my thinking. No, Chris, I don't want you to go back. But I want you to move forward with where I am, understanding that you are poor in spirit, but I am with you. You can be blessed. So friends, my prayer has shifted from, no, God, I don't want to go back to normal. I don't want to go back to what was, because that's the old me. But God, I want to move forward with where you are and where you are going. Why? Because I know that He's already there. And when we think about choosing faith over fear, sometimes it's those fears and that worry of what's going to happen. It begins to rip and tear at our hearts. And there's a wound. And Jesus came, and He was torn apart physically. There was open wounds all over His body, bones shattered, suffering and suffering and suffering. And then, and friends, may we not miss this, healing. Healing of the heart. That's why Jesus came. And even the disciples missed it. Lois referenced it in talking about, you know, the different storms, the miracles that they saw. They even tried to do things, and they came to Jesus and they said, Jesus, we can't do this. What are we going to? And He looks at them and He says, you've got little to no faith. They were missing it because they weren't looking inside to see where Jesus truly wanted to reside. This perfect garden, the place where God will come to give inner peace. Friends, may that truly be our heart's cry as we come before Him. You know, I can't help but think of the picture of the Roman soldier when he looked up and he said, surely this is the Son of God. Because in that moment, friends, the Roman soldier had a double realization. He realized what he had done to this man, seeing him up there stripped of all his humanity. But also in that moment, he realized what God, human in the flesh, had done for him. And friends, that's why we come to the table, to reflect upon our own human condition, but then also to remember what Jesus, God in the flesh, has done for you and for me. Today, may that wonder of God be rekindled in our souls. Jesus truly is, as I said when we were reading through and walking through Matthew 1, Jesus is the root of all life. And so now we come to a time when we listen for Jesus. And I've asked Fred to read those words of Jesus. You've already heard me say some of it when it comes to that invitation. But I've asked Fred this morning to read those words as paraphrased by Eugene Peterson. Listen as Fred shares them.
Let's hear the words of Jesus from Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. He says, "Are you tired?"
Hold it. What? Did you catch that? Now, I stopped Fred intentionally this morning. He didn't know I was going to do this, but I don't want us to miss those. That question of Jesus to you right here, right now. When Jesus begins to give us that invitation, He invites us into self-examination. So let me ask all of you, let me ask myself, are you tired? Right? But listen, don't miss this. Don't miss these next words of Jesus. When He says, are you tired? Because don't miss the fact that Jesus isn't talking about the physical condition. Fred, continue.
Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Hear the unforced rhythms. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly.
You'll learn to live freely and lightly. Now, this wasn't by design, but I don't know if you noticed in the background as Mark was playing, the rhythm of the music started to pick up. The beat of the music started to pick up, and sometimes there's that noise in the backgrounds of our lives, and it picks up, and it gets stronger and stronger at times. Do you ever feel like that? And sometimes you just want the noise to stop. Fred, do me a favor. Stop Mark for just a moment. And we pause. And we take in a breath. that breath given to us by God, our Father. And Jesus says to you, he says to me again, are you tired? And he says, come to me. Lois, would you come?
How can we keep on choosing faith over fear? Keep on coming to Jesus. Keep company with Jesus, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. As you're reading through the Gospel of Matthew, as I've been reading through the Gospel of Matthew, it's just come to the top again and again and again. All authority belongs to Jesus. All authority belongs to Jesus. When I was at Acadia working on my master's degree, I had to give a presentation on Charles Spurgeon. I chose him because there were some things about his life that I just valued and really appreciated. And this is something that I read recently and found on one of the sites about Charles Spurgeon. Always be coming to Jesus. Oh, for the grace to be always coming to Jesus and to be constantly inviting others to do the same. Always free, yet always learning. Always free, yet always bearing his yoke. Always having the rest once given, yet always finding more. This is the experience of those who come to Jesus always. Blessed heritage, and it is ours. We want to start with the evaluation that we read in Psalm 139. This is how we can think out loud. How do we deal with the fear? How do we choose faith over fear? We come to Jesus and we say, Lord, here I am before you. Examine my heart. Search me. Know my anxious thoughts. Know my fears. And point out anything in me that offends you. And lead me along the path of everlasting life. Lead me on the road of faith discovery. Lead me, but point out what I need to deal with. Let's do soul care together. It's all about the heart. Come. Our heart's posture needs to be coming. That's the posture of our heart today. In these quiet moments, come. Come to Jesus. That's our heart's posture. Come to Jesus today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day. Let's pause. Let's close our eyes and pray. Let's ask Richard to begin with prayer.
Lord, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we can come together here and worship together, hear your word. We thank you for each one of our leaders. Lord, we just at this time we pray for each one
one of our leaders, local, provincial, federal, whatever, Lord, as we continue through this journey and road that we're on, and just pray you bless them and guide and direct them. Lord, we just pray for each and every one of the people who are causing these services, and just pray, Lord, that we just be with them and bless them as well. Lord, we know that you are in control, and we just pray that you would be with each and every one. And you would pray, Lord, you would take a hand in this situation. Just with each one as we try to get settled. We know, Lord, that we're very stressed and praying, and just give us comfort as we continue through this. We ask this in your name.
You can take your communion cups if you would. We're going to think about Jesus, the healer of our hearts, the one who gave his life for us, the one who gives us faith by grace. Jesus has become our hope, our life, our strength, because Jesus has all authority. We don't need to give attention to those who are disturbing the peace, those who are doing like I did, going to the middle of the road and drawing back their fists and getting ready. What needs to dominate our thinking? Jesus has all authority. He came and gave his life. He said, I'm the bread. I'm the manna from heaven, the true manna from heaven. He's the deliverer. He has already won. He gave his life. He gave his life for us. Doesn't matter what else is happening in the world. He will deliver us. And he has delivered us. And he will continue to deliver us. He said, I'm the new covenant. I am the bread. My life has been broken for you. He said, take this bread. Eat of me. Your life will be changed. I have all authority. Let's eat together of the bread of life that Jesus is for us.
I so appreciated Richard's words in his prayer. He was very open. He was honest. He was vulnerable in the words that he chose. Friends, I want us to be mindful of that. When we come before the Lord, when we ask the Lord to search ourselves, friends, it is okay to be open, to be honest, to be vulnerable. The stress, the strain. I can't help but picture Jesus the night before he was to face that awful, awful death. Coming before his Father, crying out, saying, God, if there would only be another way, would you take this cup and would you take it from me? No. My son, I need you to take this cup. Because you see, friends, when we come to his table and the invitation that's there, as we break bread together, as we drink together, when Jesus says, come to me, that invitation isn't saying, that the stress, the strain, the suffering is going to go away. But rather, you and I are saying, we invite the one who suffered with us, who suffered for us. We invite him to walk that road of discovery with us. It doesn't mean that all the questions go away. Wouldn't that be nice? Right? If all the questions just went away, right? And tomorrow, here in this wonderful nation of Canada, we would all wake up and we could go, peace. But we're likely going to wake up tomorrow. We're going to go about our lives, and there's still going to be that stress. There's still going to be that strain. There's still going to be that worry. But as we've walked today, friends, can we tomorrow and the next day and the next day walk in step with Jesus in the midst of it? To know that when he took on that suffering, that when his blood was shed, when all those wounds on his body were opened, healing began. And so I invite you to take your cup, and as you drink, know that as you drink today, you're not drinking to say, okay, yeah, that's it, the suffering's over, after I drink this, it's done. No. As you and I drink today, we drink knowing that going into suffering, we do so in faith, in the wonder of the death of Jesus, knowing that he walks with us every step of the way. Let's drink together. Friends, I want to leave you with the model prayer that Jesus gave as a teaching, yes, to those that were listening on that hillside that day, but also as a teaching, a model of prayer for you and I some 2,000 years later. And this translation that I leave with you, some of you may have already read it. It's not the NIV. It's not the NLT. It's not the New King James. It's not the NRSV. It's not the ESV. It's not Eugene Peterson. It's Chris Bennett. As I have sat and continue like you do to reflect on all that's around us, this is how this prayer is stirring in my heart these days. And I want to leave it with you today. Our Father, you are present in a realm we have not seen. Your name is love and light. May your community that is love be present here in the world we exist in, just as it is in the realm we have not seen. Today, thank you for the food on our tables. Help us show grace and compassion to those who need food on their tables. Forgive us when we do not walk in the way of love. May we forgive others with the same mercy you have extended to us. Keep us in line with truth so we do not harm ourselves. Pick us up out of darkness. You reign eternally. You know all that is going on and hold the keys. Let that sink in for a moment, friends. Because right now, I don't know about you, like I shared yesterday on Facebook, my mind is spinning. And it continues to spin. But Father, you know all that is going on. And you hold the keys. Thank you for all time and even beyond. And everyone said, friends, I am going with God because God is already where I am going. Go in His love today, friends. God bless.
Thank you.